There is a novel that does not leave its reader the same as before. Goat Days by the Indian writer Benyamin, published in 2008. It is a work that reveals the dark face of migration. We present a brief overview of it from the page World Book Summaries. The novel gained wide recognition because it is inspired by a true story and was later adapted into a famous film titled The Goat Life. The story follows Najib, an Indian man who travels to Saudi Arabia in search of a better life, improved financial conditions, and to support his family. However, he finds himself enslaved in a remote farm, herding goats under inhumane conditions. Upon arrival, he is received by the kafil, sponsor, employer, who places him in an isolated farm in the desert. He treats him as cheap labor, deprives him of freedom and comfort, and leaves him in extremely harsh conditions. Over time, Najib suffers from hunger, thirst, loneliness, and physical abuse, and is denied even the most basic human rights. Because he is completely isolated from human contact, he gradually begins to bond with the goats, treating them as his only companions, until he slowly feels he has lost part of his human identity. After years of suffering, he decides to escape across the desert with some other workers. The escape journey is exhausting and dangerous, and one of his companions dies along the way. However, Najib continues walking until he reaches inhabited areas and eventually manages to return to his homeland. The novel is important because it documents the real suffering of thousands of migrant workers who are deceived by false promises and then silently enslaved, far from the eyes of the world. It shows how a human being can fall into isolation and identity loss when deprived of communication and freedom. It also criticizes the exploitation of migrant labor within unregulated work systems or remote areas, and emphasizes that a person may break down physically and psychologically, yet still find an inner force that drives survival. This novel reminds us that behind every success story of migration, there are thousands of forgotten stories of people who paid a heavy price they never chose.